O-Level Chemistry, Paper Code 5070, Paper 2 Variant 2, May-June 2020. Today we are going to solve Section B of the paper. Section A we have already solved. This video is uploaded. Now we have to start Section B. First question of Section B, it is question number 7. This question is about sum of the oxides of the elements in period 3. Part A, state the electronic configuration of the negative ion in sodium oxide Na2O. In the compound Na2O, this sodium belongs to first A group and this oxygen belongs to 6A group. This sodium is positively charged ion whereas this oxygen is negatively charged ion. We have to find out the electronic configuration of the negative ions, means we have to find out the electronic configuration of this oxygen ion. Since oxygen belongs to 6A group, so total number of electrons in oxygen atom in the first orbital there will be 2 electrons and in the second orbital there will be 6 electrons. So total number of electrons in oxygen atom will be 8. Now this oxygen ion has gained 2 electrons from sodium atom. So total number of electrons in oxygen ion will be 8 plus 2, 10. Now out of 10 electrons, 2 electrons will be in first orbital and 8 electrons will be in second orbital. So electronic configuration of oxygen ion will be 2, 8. 2 electrons in the first orbital and 8 electrons in the second orbital, total electrons 10. Part B. Magnesium oxide is an insoluble base that can be used to prepare pure magnesium sulfate crystals. Describe the essential practical details for the preparation of pure magnesium sulfate crystals from magnesium oxide. We add excess of magnesium oxide in sulfuric acid and gently heat it. When we add excess of magnesium oxide in sulfuric acid and gently heat it, this magnesium oxide, it reacts with sulfuric acid and it forms magnesium sulfate. Now this magnesium sulfate is soluble in water. So here this magnesium sulfate will be dissolved in water and we will get a solution. Since here we have taken magnesium oxide in excess, so there will be some remaining magnesium oxide that has not reacted with sulfuric acid. So we have to remove this unreacted magnesium oxide from the solution. Since magnesium oxide is insoluble, so we will filter the solution. When we will filter the solution, this magnesium oxide will be removed as a residue and in the filtrate we will get magnesium sulfate and water. Now this solution is gently heated. When we will gently heat, the excess of water molecule will be removed from the solution and when it will be cooled down, it will be converted to magnesium sulfate crystals. So in this way, we will get pure magnesium sulfate crystals. So what you have to write here, excess of magnesium oxide is added with sulfuric acid and gently heated. It reacts and forms magnesium sulfate solution. Filter the sample and by filtering, the unreacted insoluble magnesium oxide is removed as a residue. Now heat the filtrate gently. That will remove the excess water, allow to cool down and get crystals of magnesium oxide. Part C. An oxide of phosphorus contains 43.7% by mass of phosphorus. Number 1. Show that the empirical formula for this oxide is P2O5. Here we have to find out the empirical formula. To find out the empirical formula, the first step is to divide the percentage composition by their relative atomic mass. Now here it is phosphorus oxide. In phosphorus oxide, phosphorus is 43.7%. So the percentage of oxygen in phosphorus pentaoxide will be 100 minus 43.7. It will be 56.3%. Now first step, divide the percentage composition by their relative atomic mass. So what we have to do? We have to divide the percentage composition of phosphorus by atomic mass of phosphorus. and in the same way we have to divide the percentage composition of oxygen by atomic mass of oxygen. When we will divide the percentage composition by their relative atomic mass, we will get for phosphorus it is 1.41 and for oxygen it will be 3.51. Now the next step, the ratios that obtained here, it is divided by the smallest ratio. Now here we obtain two ratios 1.41 and second is 3.51. Here 1.41 is smallest, so here we have to divide both the ratios by 1.41. So for phosphorus it will be 1.41 divided by 1.41, it will be equal to 1. And for oxygen we have to divide 3.51 by 1.41, we will get 2.5. Now here the simplest ratios obtained is not in whole number, it is 2.5. So to convert this in whole number we have to multiply this one by 2. When we will multiply 2.5 by 2 we will get 5. Since here we have multiplied this 2.5 by 2, so definitely this 1 should also be multiplied by 2. When we will multiply this 1 by 2 we will get 2. So the simplest ratio for phosphorus is 2 and for oxygen it is 5. So the empirical formula will be P2O5. This 2 is the simplest ratio of phosphorus, this 5 is simplest ratio of this oxygen. So the empirical formula will be P2O5. Next part, a sample of this oxide has a mass of 2.56 gram. The sample contains 0.00901 mole of oxide. Calculate the relative molecular mass and hence the molecular formula for this oxide of phosphorus. Here first thing we have to calculate relative molecular mass. To calculate relative molecular mass, we will take the help of the formula number of moles is equal to mass over molecular mass. Now molecular mass will be equal to mass over number of moles. Now mass is given 2.56 gram, number of moles is given 0.00901. So molecular mass will be 2.56 over 0.00901. It will be 284. Now molecular mass we have calculated, molecular mass is 284. Now what about the molecular formula? The second thing that we have to find out is molecular formula. Molecular formula is given as empirical formula multiplied by ratio n. What is ratio n? Ratio n is equal to molecular mass over empirical formula mass. Now to find out the value of n, we should know the value of molecular mass and empirical formula mass. Molecular mass of the compound we have just calculated, it is 284. Now what about the empirical formula mass? Empirical formula we have already calculated, it is P2O5. Now empirical formula mass will be the mass of all the atoms present in this empirical formula. Now empirical formula mass will be equal to 31 multiplied by 2. This 31 is atomic mass of phosphorus. Since here we have 2 phosphorus, so it will be 31 multiplied by 2. Here we have 5 oxygen. For 1 oxygen mass is 16. So it will be 16 multiplied by 5, and by solving this one we will get 142. So we have calculated empirical formula mass, it is 142. Now ratio n is equal to molecular mass over empirical formula mass. So we have to divide this molecular mass 284 by 142. We will get 2. So the value of n, so the ratio n is equal to 2. Now empirical formula is given here P2O5. Ratio n we have calculated, it is 2. Now this 2 will be multiplied by this 2 by the number of atoms of phosphorus, and also it will be multiplied by number of atoms of oxygen in the empirical formula. So this 2 we have to multiply by 2, and also this 2 will be multiplied by 5, and by multiplying this one we will get P4O10. So the molecular formula of this compound is P4O10. Part D, State the structure and bonding in silicon dioxide. Silicon dioxide is a molecule and it has a giant structure, so we can write giant molecular structure. Okay, it is the end of the question. Next question. Question number 8. Copper is a transition element. Part A. State two properties that are typical of the compounds of a transition element. For properties of transition elements, all the transition elements, they have variable oxidation state. As an example, for iron, iron has oxidation state of +2 and also +3. So here we can say for transition element, they have variable oxidation state. Second property we can write, they form color compound. We know color of copper sulfate is bluish in color and copper is a transition metal. So we can say for the transition metals, the compound formed are colored. So the two properties, one property is variable oxidation state and second property is form colored compounds. Part B, aqueous copper sulfate reacts with aqueous potassium iodide. The ionic equation for this reaction is shown. Explain how this equation shows that the reaction involves oxidation. Oxidation means gain of oxygen or removal of hydrogen or removal of electron. Here before the reaction for iodide ion the oxidation state is -1. After the reaction for this iodine the oxidation state is 0. So here oxidation state of iodine is changing from -1 to 0. Means here iodine is losing electron. Since here iodide ion is losing electron, so here we can say iodide ion is oxidized. So what we have to write here? Oxidation state of iodine changes from -1 to 0, shows loss of electron and loss of electron is called oxidation. Part C. Anhydrous copper sulfate decomposes when heated strongly. A sample of 6.4 gram of copper sulfate is heated until all the sample has thermally decomposed. Calculate the volume of sulfur trioxide formed in decimeter cube measured at room temperature and pressure. First we will calculate the number of moles of copper sulfate. To calculate the number of moles of copper sulfate, we have a formula mass over molecular mass. The mass of copper sulfate is given 6.4 gram. Molecular mass will be for 1 copper mass is 64, for 1 sulfur 32, for 1 oxygen it is 16. Here we have 4 oxygen, so total mass of oxygen will be 64. So molecular mass of copper sulfate will be 64 plus 32 plus 64. And by solving this one, we will get 0.04 moles. So here number of moles of copper sulfate reacted is 0.04 moles. Now from the balance equation it is clear that 1 mole of copper sulfate gives us 1 mole of copper oxide and 1 mole of sulfur trioxide. Here mole ratio of sulfur trioxide gas and copper sulfate is same. From 1 mole of copper sulfate we get 1 mole of sulfur trioxide. Since here number of moles of copper sulfate reacted is 0.04 mole, so same number of moles of sulfur trioxide we will get here. We will get 0.04 moles of sulfur trioxide. We know that 1 mole of any gas at room temperature and pressure it occupies 24 decimeter cube. So 1 mole of sulfur trioxide gas at RTP will have a volume of 24 decimeter cube. Now here volume of sulfur trioxide is 0.04 moles. So 0.04 moles of sulfur trioxide gas at RTP will occupy 0.04 multiplied by 24, it will be 0.96 decimeter cube. So the volume of sulfur trioxide gas obtained will be 0.96 decimeter cube. Part D. Iron reacts with aqueous copper sulfate to make aqueous iron sulfate and copper. Number 1. Construct the ionic equation for the reaction. Here it is given iron reacts. Iron reacts with copper sulfate. Copper sulfate means copper ion and sulfate ion. When iron reacts with copper sulfate, we get ferrous sulfate and copper. And ferrous sulfate is an ionic compound, so we will get ferrous ion and sulfate ion. So before the reaction, we have iron, we have copper ion and sulfate ion, and after the reaction, we have iron ion, sulfate ion and copper. Now here sulfate ion is common on reactant side and product side. We will cancel out this sulfate ion. The ions that are same on both the sides are called spectators, and spectators we have to cancel out. So when we will cancel out this sulfate ion, we will get the equation iron Fe plus copper ion, and after the reaction we will get ferrous ion and copper. So it is the ionic balance equation. Second part suggests one observation that would be seen during the reaction. Before the reaction we have iron and copper sulfate. This copper sulfate is of blue color. After the reaction we have iron, sulfate and copper metal. This copper metal is of pink color, whereas ferrous sulfate, iron sulfate, it is of green color solution. So the color will be changed from blue color solution to green color solution, and we will get pink color in the bottom of the solution because of this copper. So what we have to write here, color of the solution changes from blue to green solution because of iron sulfate, and pink solid is deposited in bottom because of copper. Part E. Describe a chemical test that can be used to distinguish between aqueous solutions of iron sulfate and copper sulfate. To distinguish, we have to add aqueous sodium hydroxide. If by adding aqueous sodium hydroxide we get green color precipitate, then it is iron sulfate. If we get blue precipitate, then it will be copper sulfate. Okay, next question. Question number 9. Sulfur dioxide is a colorless gas which can be found in air. Part A. State one environmental problem caused by the presence of sulfur dioxide in air. Sulfur dioxide is acidic in nature, and when it is absorbed in water, it forms sulfuric acid. So it is called acid rain, and this acid rain can cause acidification of the lakes. So here what you have to write, sulfur dioxide absorbs in water called acid rain that can cause acidification in lakes. Part B. When heated in air, iron pyrite FeS2 reacts with oxygen, sulfur dioxide and iron oxide Fe2O3 are the products of this reaction. Construct the equation for this reaction. When we react FeS2 with oxygen, we get ferric oxide Fe2O3 and sulfur dioxide gas SO2. Now here to balance the equation, there will be 4 moles of FeS2, 11 moles of oxygen, 2 moles of ferric oxide and 8 moles of sulfur dioxide. Next part C. Give one use of sulfur dioxide. Sulfur dioxide is used as a food preservative, so we can write here for food preservation. Part D. Liquid sulfur dioxide is stored in cylinder. When the cylinder is opened, the liquid quickly changes into a gas. Use the kinetic particle theory to describe the change in movement and arrangement of the particles when liquid sulfur dioxide becomes a gas. In liquid, the kinetic energy of the molecules is less as compared to kinetic energy of the molecule in gaseous state. So we can say in gaseous state, the molecule move faster as compared to the movement of the molecules in liquid. So regarding the movement, what we can write, in gaseous state, molecules possess more kinetic energy compared to liquid, so move faster. What about the arrangement? In liquid state, there is a strong intermolecular force of attraction, and because of which the intermolecular spaces is very less, molecules are close together. Whereas in gaseous state, intermolecular force of attraction is very weak, so the molecules move away from each other. They are far apart from each other. So regarding the arrangement, what we can write? Regarding arrangement, intermolecular space increases and the molecules move far away from each other. Next part, sulfur dioxide has a low melting point. Suggest in terms of structure and bonding why sulfur dioxide has a low melting point. Sulfur dioxide is a simple covalent compound. It has simple molecular structure and simple molecular structure have low melting point because of weak intermolecular force of attraction. So what we have to write here? Sulfur dioxide has a simple molecular structure that has weak intermolecular force of attraction. That's why it has low melting point. Part F. Describe the chemical test for sulfur dioxide. To test sulfur dioxide, what we have to do? Just we have to take a filter paper. First we have to dip this filter paper in acidified potassium magnate. Now this filter paper that is already dipped in acidified potassium magnate, this filter paper we have to dip, we have to bring close to the test tube where we have kept the sulfur dioxide gas. If the color changes from purple to colorless, means this test tube contains sulfur dioxide gas. So what will be the observation? The observation will be color changes from purple to colorless. Okay, next question. Question number 10. Fractional distillation and cracking are important process in the conversion of petroleum into useful hydrocarbons. Part A. Fractional distillation separates petroleum, crude oil, into the fractions such as bitumen and naphtha, which physical property allows the petroleum, crude oil to be separated into fractions. The petroleum or the hydrocarbon present in the petroleum are separated because of different boiling points of the fractions present in the crude oil. Next part 2, describe the separation of petroleum crude oil by fractional distillation. Crude oil or the petroleum is heated and this petroleum or crude oil is taken in a tower that is called fractionating column. In this tower or in this fractionating column, we have openings at different points. So here the fractions present in the petroleum are separated. These are taken out from these openings because of their different boiling points. So what we have to write here? Petroleum is heated in fractionating column. These fractions leave at different exits of the column from the fractionating tower. Part 3. Give one use of bitumen fraction. Bitumen is used for road carpeting. So here just we have to write road carpeting. Part B. The naphtha fraction is used as a chemical feedstock. One of the hydrocarbons in naphtha has a molecular formula C10H22. Use the general formula of an alkane to show that C10H22 is an alkane. General formula of alkane is CnH2n plus 2. Now here C10 means value of n is 10. So in place of n we will write 10. When we will write 10 it will become C10 and it will become H will become 2 multiplied by 10 20 plus 2 22. So here it will be C10H22. Here it is given C10H22. So this one is an alkane because it satisfies the general formula of alkane. So here we have to write general formula of alkanes is CnH2n plus 2. In C10H22 number of carbon atoms means value of n is 10. So 2n plus 2 is equal to 2n means 2 multiplied by 10 plus 2 it is 22 means here we have 10 carbon and we have total 22 hydrogen. Part C. In an experiment C10H22 is cracked to form products A, B and C. Product A gives a squeaky pop when ignited with a burning splint. Identify product A. The pop sound we get when hydrogen is produced. So here the product is hydrogen gas. Next part. Product B has a relative molecular mass of 98 and decolorizes aqueous bromine. Suggest the molecular formula for B. Explain your answer. Here it is given the hydrocarbon decolorizes aqueous bromine, means it is an alkene, and the molecular mass of that alkene is 98. Now general formula for an alkene is given as CnH2n. This CnH2n we can write as CH2n. Now here this compound, this CH2n has a molecular mass of 98. So here we can say molecular mass of this CH2n is equal to 98. Molecular mass of this compound B is 98. Now atomic mass of carbon is 12. Here we have 1 carbon. So here total mass of carbon will be 12. Here we have 2 hydrogen. For 1 hydrogen mass is 1. So total mass of hydrogen is 2. Now total mass of CH2 will become 14. So we can write 14 multiplied by n is equal to 98. And from this expression we will get the value of n. N will be equal to 98 over 14. It will be 7. So here value of n is equal to 7. Now general formula of alkene is given as CnH2n. Value of n is 7. So it will become C7. Here H2n. Here value of n is 7. So it will become 2 multiplied by 7, 14. So this CnH2n will be equal to C7H14. So molecular formula of the alkene that has molecular mass 98 is C7H14. Part 3. Product C can be polymerized to give the polymer shown. Draw the structure of product C. Here a polymer is given and it is asked we have to draw the structure of the monomer. In this polymer, these two free valencies of carbon will combine together and a double bond will be formed in between these two carbon atoms. So in a monomer, in between these two carbon atoms, we will have a double bond. Here we will have one hydrogen, here hydrogen, again here one hydrogen, and at this carbon we should have a methyl radical. So what will be the structure here? It is carbon-carbon double bond. Here we have two hydrogen. In the bottom again we have one hydrogen and one methyl radical. So it is the structure of the monomer, or we can say the structure of the product C. Now we have completed this question. This question is the last question of the paper. Today we have completed this paper 2 variant 2 May June 2020.